This is your Introduction to Art, a new experiment in educational television by the University of California at Los Angeles and KNXT. This is Art 5A, a university credit course offered Monday through Friday at this time for the next 15 weeks as a public affairs presentation of this station. Good morning, everyone. Bruce Buell inviting you once again into the television classroom of Miss Mary Holmes, Associate Professor of Art at UCLA. This art appreciation course being offered here each morning is open for credit and non-credit enrollment to you, the viewer, at regular university tuition rates. And now for the second lecture in Introduction to Art with Miss Mary Holmes. If you would like to enroll in this course, Art 5A, then write Art 5A, UCLA, Los Angeles 24, California. That's Art 5A, UCLA, Los Angeles 24, California. And now, Miss Mary Holmes.
Hello, everybody. You know, I didn't really clear up the mystery of what I'm going to be talking to you about, I'm afraid, at least not for some people, because I spend so much time telling you the things that I'm sure everybody thinks I'm going to be doing, and maybe I'm not right at all. You know, they might have an entirely different idea. And certainly anybody who's sent for the syllabus is going to have a pretty clear idea of what I'm going to be doing. It isn't teaching you how to draw. It isn't teaching you how to paint. I hope that it'll be teaching you something that you can use if you do paint and if you do draw. But it won't be actually, you make it this way. It won't be that. And it also, if I can do anything about it, it won't be a deliberate change in your taste. What I want to do, I really sort of hesitate to tell anybody. It almost embarrasses me. And the reason is that what I want to do is increase your pleasure, is actually to give you more fun, more enjoyment, more pleasure than you'd otherwise have. Isn't that a funny thing? Because it's something that everybody thinks they can do for themselves, really. And they don't need anybody else to tell them. They know what kind of pleasure they want, and they don't need any assistance on it. And also, it's got such a peculiar overtone. I'm write it here for us to look at so that you can see that please is in it, or nearly. And I'm not sure that's spelled right because I can't spell, and as you can see, I can't write. But this has never really held me back, I like to think, too much. But the word has such funny reactions. People have such funny reactions to it. They always think that their own pleasures are sort of meek and mild and nice, but that everybody else's pleasures are very wild. That everybody else thinks of pleasure as getting drunk or kicking up their heels in some kind of a way, even though they know that pleasure is often just sitting in front of a fireplace with a nice cat. Art isn't that kind of a pleasure, but it is a pleasure. And I think everybody knows this, and it causes a good deal of embarrassment for some people, and particularly in universities. As the university sometimes wonders what it's harboring in its bosom, you know. Courses in art, and art is pleasure. Increase of pleasure, is that what we're doing? And it makes some people quite nervous. They get to thinking about what it would sound like if we had professors of pleasure, and what it would seem like to the regents and the trustees and all the people who worry about what's going on in universities, as well as, of course, the taxpayers and even some of the students. So no matter how nice we make pleasure, and we can put it in a heart, maybe I should put it in a shamrock, it's something that is a nice, loving form. Pleasure is in art, but it isn't the whole thing. It isn't the entire thing. And if you think of pleasure and art as synonymous, well, I don't think it's so wicked. I don't think it's wrong. I think that it's worse to think of art as absolutely devoid of pleasure. And I'm sorry to say a lot of people do. They think that it's a duty, and they better support art because then everything will go all right. And that's not true. But to think that it's nothing but pleasure is like thinking that a pitcher that has water in it is really itself water. And that, therefore, there's no difference between the pitcher and the water. And you wouldn't make such a stupid mistake, of course, if you were actually looking at one. But a lot of people, knowing that there's pleasure in art, do make that mistake and think that, well, art is pleasure. There's pleasure in it. I get pleasure from it. It is pleasure. And they think of pleasure as an agreeable thing. It is. As ingratiating, pleasing. And then they look for that in art. And then what happens if suddenly they see this? This is not intended to please. The artist didn't want to please you at all. He wanted to frighten you. And he wanted to make you experience something deeply that you hadn't experienced before, maybe. Maybe the awful pull of being hanged. See how long this is. And now as you look at it, you feel yourself pulled out, stretched, long and narrow, with being hanged. See, it isn't pleasure only. It's something else. And one of the things I think you'll understand if I tell you the title of this. This is called For 30 Pieces of Silver. And it's Judas Iscariot who has hanged himself for betrayal. Now that isn't pleasant. It isn't a pleasant idea and it isn't a pleasant thing. But it is a work of art. And if it increases your understanding, because that is another thing that I want to do. I want these things to work together, for pleasure to give you understanding and understanding to give you pleasure. And for you to know that they work, oh, like clasped hands, to make this kind of a thing, which is entirely different from this or this. And if this is pleasure and this is understanding, this is what happens in art. They come together and they are bound together. To separate them makes another thing. And I'm afraid that that isn't art when it becomes just pleasure or just understanding. And so we'll try to make both of them work and work together. Now, pleasure is an ingredient. It's part of it. It's like baking powder in a cake. It's like something which works in the cake but isn't the cake. You see, there's quite a difference between baking powder and a cake. If you ever want some baking powder with a glass of milk, your condition is different from that in which you'd want a piece of cake with a glass of milk. They're entirely different, though one's an ingredient of the other, and pleasure's an ingredient of art. Another ingredient that everyone thinks is going to be terribly, terribly missed is the ingredient of color. And as soon as I ever have said anything to anyone about trying to talk about art on television, they immediately said, oh, but no color. How can there be anything to art without color? Well, color is just like pleasure. It's an ingredient of art. And it may be a perfectly delightful one. It may be an absolutely ingratiating and pleasing one. And for works of art that are all color, obviously television can do nothing. And it won't do you much good to see this much closer, I'm afraid, because there's just nothing for you to see. Because this exists as color and is color, and though it's perfectly delightful, and I can tell you that it is as delicious in color as anything that you can imagine, of very subtle browns and greens and delicate reds, you have to imagine it all. There's nothing that you can see in black and white. It was not made as that. It was made as color. But it is only one example. And let me show you another that is a greater work of art. I know that's very unfashionable to say anything is greater than anything else, but I intend to say it, and I say that this is greater. And this is black and white, and was made as black and white, and was never painted. And is, I suppose, as useful a single example as anybody could have to know, to show what art is about. It's a drawing. It is a drawing of the Madonna and St. Anne and the Christ Child and John the Baptist. It is a drawing that might have been used for a painting, but no painting exists. It contains all of the quality of mystery and clarity, all of the beauty and delight, all of the pleasure that art could possibly give. But with it, something that is beyond pleasure, something that is of the very deepest nature of art, something of understanding, but understanding not too clear and not too easy, something always remaining mysterious to tantalize us, to make us wonder, to make us question, even though we may know more completely when we look at it than any question can ever give us. This is an example of what art in black and white can be, and nothing is standing, you see, between you and it. Nothing at all. If you were here, this is all it would be. There are other examples. Prepare yourself for quite a shock. There's another, which is in black and white in concept. There are actually colors in this, you see, but you don't see, and it doesn't matter. I've looked at it in the camera, and I know that it makes really no difference at all. What you lose in color is not lost, really. It is just not there. And all that this is intending to say of agony and personal agony, this is a self-portrait by the man who made the woodcut of the Judas that I just showed you. Personal agony and despair, anguish, doubt, all of the things from which he suffers, and which he sees in his face and knows are part of himself, all of those things are there, as furious as they can be, as harsh as they can be, as lacking perhaps in pleasure, as it is lacking in color. But this is not all that we need. This is only a part of the whole thing. And art may come to you just as easily, and in a way I sometimes think more easily. Because color is so dazzling and so expensive and so beyond what is needed to understand art, that I sometimes think that in woodcuts and in drawings something comes through to you which is clearer. And whether it's true or not, and whether I show you woodcuts and drawings or not, the thing which most works of art have and give is something which is beyond color. So don't feel you're cheated. I'll see you tomorrow.
This has been the second in a 15-week series of lectures on Introduction to Art, UCLA's first credit course by television. Your Art 5A instructor, Miss Mary Holmes. Now, friends, there are two kinds of enrollment. First, you may register for 2 university credits. Participate in 4 study sessions at the university, including the examination. Or you may register as an auditor. Tuition rates are $18 if you register for credit, only $2 if you register as an auditor. And under either option, you will receive this complete study outline prepared by Ms. Holmes, a booklet that will assist you greatly in these daily sessions. Now, for enrollment, write Art 5A, UCLA Los Angeles 24, California. That's Art 5A, UCLA Los Angeles 24, California. Both KNXT and UCLA sincerely hope you'll join us in this new educational venture, for it is through your support and participation that we can judge the need and desire for this kind of programming in this community. Now, until tomorrow morning, when we will present the 3rd lecture in Introduction to Art with Miss Mary Holmes, this is Bruce Buell saying goodbye for now. Bill Whitley produced for the KNXT Department of Public Affairs. Direction by Bob Lehman. This has been a KNXT television production.